G'day folks, W211 here. Another video today. Just a real simple one. We're talking about the E55 AMG, which, as we know, is one of Mercedes' first true modern sort of V8 saloon cars that they had back in the late 90s after the E50 AMG was replaced with the E55 in 1998. So what we're doing today is just literally a little bit of a chat and walk through briefly, the differences between the two primarily, and from an owner's point of view, from my point of view, what's the difference in who would buy each car essentially. So we'll just jump straight into it, starting with a bit of information about each of these vehicles. So as you would have seen on my channel already, if you haven't, have a look on my channel or subscribe for more videos, but we've got the W210 E55. Now this is a 1998 build. So she's a few years old, originally from Japan, registered in Japan first, came to New Zealand where I'm based in 2005 from memory. And actually my W211 is exactly the same team. It's from Japan as well. It's a Japanese vehicle originally. Came to New Zealand, I think, in like 2016 or 2014. So it's been here a little while now, but both the Japanese cars. So now the W210, again, as you may know, is a special car because it was the last sort of W210 to be built in-house in a Falterbach. At the AMG sort of headquarters. So quite a special car, whereas the W211 here is built in Sindelfingen from memory in Germany, and is part of the standard E-Class production line. So this car came with this cool little metal badge here that you'll see, E55 sedan's got the VIN number on it, things like that. I guess you guys can read that, but who cares, doesn't matter, the car's here. That's cool. So the cars here, we've got our special little AMG badge. Now, just jumping inside. Oh. Now, I think of the W210 as pretty much the finale sort of car in terms of that sort of in between old school Mercedes, style, from the older generation cars like the 120, the 123, 124, the 126, those sort of late 90s, early 2000s, not late 90s, late 80s, early 90s sort of cars. The W210 has still, for example, proper individualized buttons, everything's spaced out, classic buttons and a sort of classic shifter system, and it's just a little more conventional, but it's still got a mix of sort of more modern design aesthetic that we found in the W220 and obviously the superseding W211. But yeah, we've got the old sort of cluster and things like that. Now this model here, for example, has quite a lot of Ks on it. It's got 270,000 Ks, I think, roughly. Yeah, nearly 270,000 kilometers on it, so she's done a few miles. But overall, the quality of it's pretty top notch, because it's still pretty much mint. For its mileage, that is. It's not a mint car, in terms of low mileage showroom condition, but it's pretty mint considering the Ks it's done. Everything's nice and tidy. The build quality of the W210, in my opinion, isn't as good as the W211. I'm sure some of you are going to heavily disagree with that, but that's personally what I think. I think the W211 is a better built car, to be quite frankly honest. I think these are from the era where, they were trying things out. Some of the build quality is good, some of it's not. The wood trim on these fades quite badly and cracks, whereas the W211's still mint, 20 years on. And just some of the materials, on higher mileage, they just sort of wear a little quicker and things start to break. The headliner sags and comes apart, which this one's already been replaced. The hand grips here are slightly yellowing, they're just not that factory white anymore. Just little things like that. So while it's still a very well built car overall, I think the W211's a better built car, but this just has a classic feel to it. lovely tactile feel to it, you know, solid like resin, resin coated like, oh, what do you call it? Wood veneer, you know, with the AMG emblem on the top here. Again, this one's a little bit faded, but it's still pretty mint. You know, like this sort of stuff here, you don't get this on the 211. It's just sort of more standardized AMG, and that's it. But yeah, this example, I've spent a lot of time and money on tidying it up, so it's definitely ahead of its game. But overall, interior-wise, for a more what do you say, more well-built interior, and probably a little more aesthetically pleasing, I think the 211's better. But yeah, but just little classic things like these switches are nice, and you know, everything's like not too over designed. It's just sort of simple but nice. You know, the buttons aren't anything fancy. You know, it's just nice and simple. You've got those 18-inch monoblocks, which on my one they've been resprayed, so they need to be sort of redone at some point, redone properly. As we know, the 210s do have like a rust issue. This one's got a few little, you know, marks along the door edges where it's a bit of surface rust, but nothing bad. Everything down here is nice. There's no rust or anything, which is good, thankfully, for these sorts of cars. And in New Zealand here, we don't have any salt roads, for example. But yeah, you know, and I've had this car up on the hoist, the 210 up on the hoist, and done quite a bit of work on it, which you might see in my other videos. And underneath, you can see it's a more simple car. There's less going on. There's sort of, I think, less engineering behind it. It's, you know, it's just a different era of vehicle that the 211 far beats this generation, in my opinion. So yeah, overall, putting them side by side, I prefer the 211, and I'm telling you that halfway through the video here. Not leaving it to the end, I'm just making it simple. I'm letting you guys know that the 211 is my preferred car. I think it looks just, obviously looks more modern. I think the 210 is a bloody cool looking car. Not from the back necessarily, at least not the pre-facelift, but I think the front of it, the front of this car, which I'm sure you've all seen before, is just magnificent. Like, it's just got, excuse the harsh light, it's just got that perfect balance, like front end, you know, the headlights are lovely and round, it's got a nice sort of fat stance on it, whereas the 211 still looks gorgeous as well, but in a different way. It's just, you know, it's just the newer brother of this. It's just the newer incarnation, you know, it's got that more modern look to it. But I think the 210 does look flippin' cool from the front, especially when you've got both headlights and the fog lights on. Now, jumping into the 211. Now, just by the way, team, both of these cars have been very reliable, right? Both of these cars have been super reliable. This car, I've done quite a lot to it, a lot of preventative maintenance to it. I have gone through the hassle of replacing all the suspension in the car and things like that. But, you know, you don't have to do that. But if you want a car that's more simple and it's going to run and take a little more beating, the 210 is a better car. Because remember, the 211s have our glorious SBC braking system, which I've had this system replaced for $9,000, which was done by the dealer for free, thankfully. So thank you, Mercedes-Benz Botany. But all in all, this car does need more babying. This car does need more work. You know, this car is a little more fragile, in my opinion. Much more fun on the road. The supercharged M113 is brilliant, but you need more money if you're going to own this sort of car. So if budget is a concern, you are probably better with the 210. The 210 also uses less gas as well. This uses a little bit more gas. And even things like the brakes, you know, we've got those big 8-pot brakes at the front here. They use bigger rotors, bigger pads. Yeah, you've got the SBC system. You've got more going on with the engine. But to work on, this car's not too bad. Obviously, this car's been on the hoist as well. It's a relatively easy car to still work on. Only marginally harder than the 210. But they've still got essentially the same engine and transmission. Obviously, this has the compressor bolted onto the top as well. Now, I just find that, as I said earlier, the build quality of these cars is superior from the 210. I just think there's more thought and more creativity going into this car. Now, you'll see my seats are glowing. It's not because they've been like worn to hell. It's because I've got my leather treatment on it. I'm just letting it soak in. So it's a real good quality leather cleaning and what do you call it, restoration product. So this car hasn't had it in about a year and a half, so I've just chucked some on there so I can give you more information on that if you want to know more about it. But the steering wheel as well, put some on that too. But just everything's just more elegant in Mercedes. Like even the dashboard, it's creative. The center console, it's got a nice layout to it. The gear shift is nice big rubber, nice big leather boot wrapped around it. It's just a nicer car. And same with like the back seats even. You know, look at this design, it's beautiful. And the leather quality in here is perfect. It's still brand new in this car. All the door cards, nice leather wraps, nice fluted sort of leather here. You know, we've got nice chrome accenting. We've got door cards that don't sort of fade out in the sun, you know. So like you go and look at the 211, for example. This car's obviously 6 years older than this car, but be careful. You'll just sort of see here, yes, they're still nice seats, but they're definitely like not as nice as the 211, in my opinion, you know. You've also got sort of still nice door cards, and they still have that sort of similar wood, you know, creative wood piece that goes through here. There's no chrome or anything, but just even these panels here, they're like, they just, you know, it's obviously like a fake leather wrapped around like a rubber sort of composite door card. It's just not as lasting quality. It just doesn't last as long. It's not as like, it just won't last as long from what I've experienced anyway. They're still not too bad, but the 211's, you know, far superior in my view around that side of things. So how I look at it, team, is if you want a E55, you know, the 210 I think is going to be a more long-term collectible car. The 211, while it will be at some point a more collectible car too, it's still a much larger production number than the 210. The 210 I think was like, I know that I do have the numbers written down somewhere, but you know, I think it was like 10,000 W210 models that were created in terms of E55, E55 Touring, etc. Whereas I think the 211, there was more like 40 or 50,000 roughly. I'll put the numbers in the subtitles of this video while you're watching it, just in case I'm wrong there. But the 210's a lot rarer. It's a car you don't see often. In saying that, I actually have one literally next door down from my office from me getting its headliner replaced. So they're common here in New Zealand, but just fundamentally they are a rarer car. But yeah, in saying that, I haven't seen a 211 E55 in months actually on the road. So, you know, if money's an issue for you, if you've got a budget, which I guess we all have a budget, but if you don't want to spend a hell of a lot of money, or you don't want to lose a lot of money, the 210's a better car. Because you've got lower maintenance costs, you've got lower fuel consumption, you've got a more likelihood of it retaining its value, whereas the 211 is a more expensive car to run. It's slightly less reliable, I'd say, because there's air suspension, SBC brakes, and its servicing costs are higher, you know, so it's going to cost more to run. Now, the 211s are pretty much at the bottom. They're not really going to depreciate anymore, I don't think. They'll probably start coming back up again. If anything, they've started to come back up slightly. So, you know, I guess for a day-to-day running costs, the 210's a better car. Now, the better driving car, in my opinion, they're both very different cars. There's nothing about the two of them that are really similar, in my opinion. They are both comfortable on the highway. They're both comfortable cars on the highway. But when you're not on the highway, the 211 is a lot more is harsher. It's a harsher riding car. Now, it's nothing like a C-Class or a C63 or a, you know, sort of base model Mercedes. It's still on air suspension, it's still smooth as, but it just doesn't have that sort of suppleness that the 210 has. The 210's on basic suspension, you know, it's just multi-link suspension with, you know, springs in the front and back and shocks. And it rides actually nicer than the 211 on air suspension, obviously because it's an AMG with Airmatic. It still rides a bit harder. But fundamentally, yeah, if you want to cruise most of the time and you don't want to hurt your back, you know, maybe you've got a sore back or you're a bit older and you just want to be comfortable, I think that the 210 is a better car for that reason. Now the 211, dare I say it, is a much better handling car than the 210. The 211, you know, feels more like it's on rails, even though it's still a massive heavy E-Class and it really isn't that good at handling in comparison to other cars on the road. It's still a better, tighter feeling car and more predictable, and it responds quicker to inputs. So if you want something that's a little more sporty, again tying in with the supercharged compressor V8, the 211 is a better car and it's far quicker. Like, night and day difference between the 210 and the 211 when I drive them. The 210's just fun. Like, it's not fast, you're not going to beat everyone in a drag race, but it's just fun and it's cool to get on the throttle and just sort of take her up to the red line. It's not super quick, but you can enjoy it and be present with it, whereas the 211 is a little more raw and in your face, and it just, you know, it goes. If you want it to go, it'll go, and before you blink, you know, you've doubled your speed. So it's quick. It's a quick car to show off to people with, or a quick car to, you know, race people against, or if you want to, you know, if you just love flooring it, then yeah, the 211's great for that. The 211 is more of a, it's not really a sports car, but it's more of a sports car, more of a sports saloon compared to the 210. You know, yeah, if you do floor it in the 211, you know, if you blink, you've doubled your speed. So, you know, it's a lot more responsive and fast and edgy compared to the 210. But yeah, overall, if you can have both, that'd be good. But personally, I'm trying to sell my 210 at the moment. At the time of recording this video, I don't love it enough to keep it. I have other Benzes that I want to replace it with. Personally, what I think, like what I would like to do, which I am working on, is I'd like to sell the 210 and buy the 211 E63 with the M156. That's what I'd like to do, because I have driven one of those before and I do feel it was a little more refined than the E55, which is the predecessor to the E63. A little more refined, and you also get the benefit of owning the 156, and while it's definitely not a reliable engine compared to the 113s, it's a flippin' awesome motor, and I've owned one before when I had my C63 about 6-7 years ago. So, you know, the E63 I think is a nice complement to the E55. But yeah, depends obviously what you're into really. But fundamentally, that's what I sort of think about these two cars. Completely different, you know, completely different design, completely different interiors, completely different drive feel, completely different cost to own and maintain. But hey, hopefully that gives you guys a bit of an idea as to, you know, what's some sort of insight into owning these cars. But yeah, my favorite, the 211. I know I get more attention in the 210. People like that car, it's a little more iconic. But you know, again, it's totally up to you guys. If you'd like to know more about those cars, I do have, I've got 3 videos on the 210, and I've got, I think, another 3 or 4 on the 211, just doing various bits and pieces. But if you'd like to know any more about them, let me know, and I'll happily sort of make some videos or content for them to send to put up on YouTube. But yeah, feel free to like and subscribe if you find the video useful. Again, a lot of these videos are just me blabbing on, but hopefully there's little bits in there that you guys value that you can take out of it. And yeah, maybe let me know what cars you guys have. Do you guys have AMGs as well? You're looking to buy one maybe, if you've got one already, let us know in the comments and let's have a bit of a discussion. So yeah, have a good day. Cheers.